Welcome into another episode of Mood Swings with Liv Moods. I'm Liv Moods, and as always, this is presented by Landmark Lincoln. Shout out to our friends over at Landmark Lincoln. Make sure you head to their location off of Bellevue and Broadway to figure out why they have been the #1 Lincoln dealer in Colorado for as long as they have. I say it every show, but I am the proud new owner of a 2025 Lincoln Nautilus and could not love my car more. So make sure you go check them out to see all that they have to offer you. Enough about vehicles. Let's get into the show. We are coming off of a, unfortunate turn of events. I decided to take myself over to Ball Arena last night for the OKC Thunder versus the Denver Nuggets game. Obviously, you guys know that just a few days ago, Nikola Jokic made his return after a left hyperextension in his knee that he suffered December 29th. We didn't know how long he was going to be out. Honestly, when he first went down, I was pretty concerned about the severity of the injury itself. Wasn't an ACL. I wasn't sure. It didn't look good. So obviously everybody in Nuggets Nation was feeling a little squeamish, a little uncomfortable, waiting for the news. Thankfully, just a hyperextension. And I think Nikola Jokic returned a little bit sooner than everybody had anticipated. So that was obviously a very exciting thing. You have him back. And you weren't really, I can't speak for everyone actually, but I'll speak for myself. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect going into this game, knowing that you were still without Aaron Gordon. You were still without CB. You were still without Cam Johnson. And so this rotation, it seems, just keeps evolving and changing. You get Jokic back in the mix. You don't have Valanciunas as the starter anymore. And by the way, Big Val, when he's in there, is definitely making those non-Jokic minutes these days feel a little bit more bearable and a little bit more comfortable. But still, this Denver Nuggets team, and maybe this is one of my largest fears, if you will, when I look at this Denver Nuggets team, the amount of different starting lineups that this Nuggets team will unfortunately have to have throughout this season just due to an injured roster is a good thing in some ways, right? You're getting superstar moments from a guy like P. Watt that otherwise wouldn't have them. You're getting to see what depth you added in the offseason and how valuable that's going to be this season. But you're also getting different forms and variations of a starting lineup, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But in such a star-driven league, you're getting different types of chemistry, different versions of what this offense looks like. How is the defense? There's a system to a starting five, right? It's not just about talent always. And it's funny because I made that video the other day where I talked about how typically a starting five is your 5 best guys. But there is a world as well where there's some strategy behind a starting lineup. It's not always going to be. And that's why I said in a perfect world, it's your 5 best guys. But it's not a perfect world. And a lot of times there has to be a strategy there because there's also certain roles that you need each starting 5 member to have. So what's going on with this Denver Nuggets team right now is because you have such an injured roster, you've got different guys playing different roles to kind of fill in the gaps for what's missing in the what otherwise would be healthy starting 5 lineup. When you miss CB and you miss AG and you miss Cam Johnson, there's some defensive stuff that you're missing that you've got to find elsewhere. So now you've got guys stepping into different roles, having to focus on different things. And while that's a really positive thing, and that's why I say there's some good and bad here, because while that's a really positive thing, the only thing I worry about is when the end of the season is here, and hopefully this Denver Nuggets team makes a deep postseason push. That starting 5, who knows what they look like? It could be changing. And I kind of hope that it is until the postseason because there's guys like Aaron Gordon that I actually hope we rest the majority of the regular season. I worry about a guy like AG. Why? Not because he can't handle it, not because he doesn't treat his offseason exactly how he should, not because he's not in shape, but because he has such an explosive game, and a hamstring injury is one that can linger and last for forever. I'm no Aaron Gordon, but when I tweak my hamstring at a Lifetime Fitness, guess what? I feel it for years. Every time the temperature changes and it gets colder outside, all of a sudden my hammy hurts again. I'm saying that because biologically it is a very difficult injury, not because I think I'm Aaron Gordon. Let's make that very clear. But biologically, it's a very, very difficult injury because of the way in which that it can linger and just last forever. It's a very nagging injury. So you're going to get different versions of this starting lineup throughout the entire regular season. And I hope you do, because I want to keep those really valuable core guys as healthy as possible for the postseason. So the only thing I worry about is that once you get to the postseason, what's the chemistry going to look like with that starting five? Let's say in a perfect world, you get AG back and healthy, fully back and fully healthy for the postseason. But by that time, the starting five has involved Peyton Watson more than it's involved Aaron Gordon. Now there's just some adjustments that need to be made. And so the only thing I worry about is how in sync is the starting five going to become postseason when we've had so many different variations of the starting five throughout the season. Again, so many positive things come with that, having different variations, but there is a world where how much time are we going to be able to get our core guys in sync ahead of the postseason? We've still got time. But like I said, a hamstring injury, AG out another 4 to 6 weeks. That's a long time. There's a lot of games that pass. And for example, one of which was just recently this OKC game. You were still missing 3 valuable guys. And this is a game that kind of sets the tone, right? This is a team that you're probably going to have to see again. And maybe potentially in a 7-game series where it's do or die. So, really quickly, I want to talk about those 3 main guys going out. I cannot believe the discourse that was happening during this OKC Denver game. Here's the deal. I was at the game, right? So I'm not hearing the commentators talking. And honestly, kind of nice, right? Because sometimes you get that bias type reporting and it drives you insane. But I was seeing on my timeline as I'm scrolling throughout the game, there were some very, very unhappy folks when it came to this commentating on the Denver Nuggets side of things, because all that the commentators could do was talk about the valuable players that OKC was missing and how different this game would look if OKC had a healthy roster. Oh my God. Like, wait a minute. I just want to make it very clear, because I even saw a tweet from Skip Bayless who was like, imagine how bad this game would have gone if OKC was healthy. Are we forgetting that the Denver Nuggets have been out 3 starters and are still out 3 starters? And I was talking about this on my social media, and some guy, I'm not even going to give him the satisfaction of saying his name, because again, my mother raised me to, she raised me understanding that you don't argue with stupid. And what this person said, unfortunately, there's no other way to describe it but stupid. He said Christian Braun as a key player, because I made mention, let's not forget that the Denver Nuggets were out 3 of their key players as well. Like, Skip, if you're going to call it on one side, you got to call it on the other. And somebody then commented and said, so it was even. I'm like, yes, but don't make it sound like OKC was in this impossible position and pulled through and found a way. Like, oh my God. By the way, I hate to break the news to you. OKC is not a victim. They are not victims at all. They're one of the best basketball teams in the NBA. They are not victims. You don't need to help them with that, right? Okay, we don't need to help them with that. So the fact that Skip Bayless is just one of many people that's saying, oh my gosh, they found a way. Despite being out 3 guys, they found a way. What do you mean they found a way? The Denver Nuggets also didn't have 3 key players. So I said that. And this person on my social media says, Christian Braun as a key player is an all-time cope. What the hell are you talking about? Christian Braun is a starter for the Denver Nuggets. He was one of the most lethal guys in transition last season. What are you talking about? He's not a key player. Are you out of your mind? So again, you don't argue with stupid. I'm not going to argue with you about it, but this is just another example. A win is a win is a win. You guys, OKC outplayed the Denver Nuggets for 4 quarters. Leave it at that. But don't then double, triple, quadruple down once the game is all said and done and be like, gosh, I just can't believe OKC found a way to win with 3 of their best guys out. Stop it. What is this new thing we're doing, making OKC the victim? They are not. They never have been, and they never will be, okay? They won the game fair and square. Let me talk a little bit about that game because I was there. OKC doesn't miss, folks. And the defense that they play is exceptional. I'm going to give credit where it's due. I'm not the biggest fan of OKC for obvious reasons as a Denver Nuggets fan. Chet Holmgren's playing fantastic defense. They have a fantastic defense. And I'm going to get to the Denver Nuggets and what I thought they did well in just a second. But OKC really couldn't miss at all. I'm sorry, but I want to know, and I want to know quickly, what is it about, and I do know what it is. Unfortunately, I know what it is, right? I know that our perimeter defense is lacking. And clearly that was what was on full display to me last night at that game. And then I flashed myself, and I'm like, how do we fix this? Well, we play the Clippers last season, and Norman Powell is, Steph Curry. We play OKC last night, and Cason Wallace is Steph Curry. There's only so many times you can say that to the opposing team and be like, dang, what was in your water this morning? What kind of magic did you have? But really, I think it's more of a reflection of maybe us needing to tighten up that perimeter defense just a smidge. Because here's the deal. We live in an era in the NBA right now where teams are living and dying by the three. And when you live and die by the three, it's a dangerous game you can play, because when you don't hit your threes, it can be problematic. But when you're OKC and you just don't miss, living and dying by the three is your weapon, especially when you're up against a Denver team that for some time now has struggled with perimeter defense. Now, I do want to say this about what Denver did well. One, they were also, again, I know people are forgetting this, they were also out three very key players in that game. I felt like the defensive intensity and hustle that they played with was exceptional. There were moments where they were really playing hard, playing tough, and that's not something that you often see with this Denver Nuggets team. I think some of that was coming from frustration. I could see moments where Nikola Jokic was getting frustrated with the officiating. I know Denver fans were getting a little frustrated. I was actually sitting next to an OKC fan, and they were awesome. Very bearable, very cool OKC fan, I will say. But even they sometimes, they were like, yeah, the officials. And here's what I'm going to say. I'll never blame a game on officials, because at this point, we just have to get familiar with the fact that they're not going to be great. 90% of the time, the NBA officials are not going to get it right. They're just not, okay? And it is what it is. It's kind of the nature of the game. But what I will say is, this was the least of SGA's foul baiting that I've ever seen, which I was pleasantly surprised by and very happy with. He wasn't doing it as much as he normally does. To me, the officiating just wasn't the same on both sides. That's it. I'm not saying that there were calls that were just like egregious. Oh my gosh, how could you let that happen? There was just one team on the floor that was able to get away with a little bit more pushy shovey, and the other one was not. That does make it hard to play defense. And I felt very, very proud of the Denver Nuggets for, despite how difficult it is to defend OKC, because whether or not you're an OKC fan or you hate them or whatever, it's undeniable that it is difficult to defend OKC. It is. And that leads me to a conversation about foul baiting in this generation. I would argue that SGA right now is one of the most polarizing players. And not so much like you've got this group that loves him and this group that doesn't, but I even internally feel polarized about how I feel about SGA on any given night. Because I can say on one side of my brain, this is one of the best basketball players in the game right now. He's an amazing basketball player. That's undeniable. Honestly, it is undeniable that SGA is an outstanding basketball player, one of the best in the game. That's undeniable. I don't care if you are rooting for OKC or you're not. That fact is undeniable. But the other part of my brain says the foul baiting is affecting the great player legacy that I know he is. Two things can be true. So I think SGA is polarizing in the sense that people watching him play don't know how to feel about his game. You can watch him and know for a fact he's an outstanding player. His stat lines will tell you that, and he passes the eye test every time. He does. I was at the game last night and I just kept saying, as much as I wanted him to miss, he wasn't missing. And he's good and he's smooth with it. And there's no denying that. But there's also no denying that he has kind of allowed this foul baiting nonsense to affect the legacy of how great he is as a player. Just be great. Just be great. Now, then the conversation continues and you get people that say, well, they all do it. Yes. It would be a lie if I said that SGA was the creator of foul baiting. James Harden in his foul baiting prime would like a word. Okay? I'm just saying, SGA did not create this problem. Let me make that very clear. That being said, hear me out. He's not the only person that foul baits, and he hasn't been the only person that's foul. This has been going on for a long time. Nikola Jokic being one of them. As a Nuggets fan, you know I like to keep it 100. Jokic being one of them. But here's why it's gotten OD. And it has, I'm afraid. Here's why it's gotten OD across the league. It is a league-wide epidemic, and here's why. Players all over. You've watched coaches in post-game pressers express frustration. You see it on players' faces in the middle of games, post games, you name it. They're over it. Here's why now it's a league-wide epidemic, and everybody's doing it because they watched SGA get rewarded for it every single time. Every single time. So everybody has foul baited. We've had floppers, in this era of basketball that we're in, flopping is not new. SGA didn't invent it. But SGA was one of the first players that was constantly, I'm talking every single game, rewarded for it. You can't deny that, unfortunately. Even if you're an OKC fan, I need you to at least acknowledge that SGA is one of the few players that constantly, and the proof, guys, I'm afraid, is in the stats. It is. So SGA being constantly rewarded and then named MVP and then winning a championship. Hell, if I'm other teams and other players, I'm going, all right, I guess that's the recipe. Okay, I guess that's the recipe. Then I guess I'm flopping. I guess I'm pushing off. I guess that's what we do now. So really, my frustration isn't always just with SGA. It's also with the league for allowing it to get this bad. It's been a problem. But now it is an epidemic with no cure because you've let it happen. Not only have you let it happen, you've rewarded it now. So now every player and team, rightfully so, feels like I can do that too. Now I can fall to the floor. Now I can push off and get away with it. This is going to start changing the game, unfortunately, and not for the better, I'm afraid. So I think that's what people struggle with SGA. There's no denying the type of player that he is and how much he's impacted the game in a good way and how talented he is. There's no denying that. But there's also no denying the snowball effect that has been created because SGA has been rewarded for something that has been a problem and has typically been ignored before. Now, players have been rewarded before. Let's not, I've seen Embiid get to the line with a couple of flops. We've seen it with Harden. We've seen it with Jokic. We've seen it. But they're not getting rewarded every single time to the point where you're watching clips on social media and you're going, I don't even see where the foul is. That's how bad it's gotten. So I think the polarization of a guy like SGA is just difficult because it's hard to not talk about SGA and how good of a player he is without bringing up how nonsensical the foul baiting is. It's gotten out of control. Now, I will say that Denver game the other night was refreshing. It was refreshing. We did not get as much foul baiting in that game as we normally would. But now we're just seeing it league-wide. So now it just feels like, oh my God, the sport as a whole is annoying. Like, oh my God, you can't do anything without somebody ending up on the ground. And the game having to stop because we're at the line. It's just becoming obnoxious. And so I think it's hard because I want to be able to give SGA, and I do try, like I really do try. I want to be able to give SGA his proper credit because he's a phenomenal player. But unfortunately, that's why I say there's kind of a world where his legacy has been affected because you don't talk about SGA anymore without that piece. Anytime SGA's name is brought up, you will, unless they're an OKC fan, you will always have someone that attaches the foul baiting to the end of that conversation. And that sucks because he's way more than that. He's way more than a foul baiter. But that's why I say there may be a world where his legacy has been a little affected by this because it's just annoying people. It just gets to a point where it's like, you're over it. So yeah, I think it's now a league-wide epidemic. I think now you've got players across the league that are like, well, my turn. You know, we watched this guy do it. We watched him get rewarded. We watched him then win an MVP, and then we watched him then go on and win a championship. So I guess that's the way to do it. And I hate that because that's not the way to do it, guys. It's not. So when I look at this OKC team, they're good. They're good. They should be feared by the league. Of course, I don't think any fan or team with common sense is not fearing OKC. I mean, I think that's just common sense at this point. OKC is good. The Denver Nuggets can be good, really good, actually. And I want to point out that in that game, there was one moment where I became really frustrated with the Denver Nuggets, really frustrated. And again, I think I could notice from my seat, I was pretty close to the court. I could notice from my seat moments where the Denver Nuggets were getting frustrated. And I'm not going to blame the officiating, but I think it's just, it is a snowball effect. And I do think, too, in the game of the NBA, officiating really matters like a lot. In the game of football, right, you've got moments where the game stops just because the play is over, timeout, injuries, this, that, you know, and those things also happen in the world of basketball. But basketball, until the whistle is blown, is pretty much moving nonstop. There's nonstop movement. And so when you have officiating affects the game of basketball a little bit more, in my opinion, than the game of football, because when you blow the whistle, it stops the game. The momentum is now stopped. The energy has shifted. It really does make a huge difference. And I could just notice the Denver Nuggets starting to get frustrated. Maybe not because the calls were necessarily bad, but just them trying to figure out how to win that game. I could see them getting frustrated. And the only thing that really bothered me was there was about 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. 7 minutes in the fourth quarter. They were down by 15. And I know 15 feels like a lot. There were moments where I was sitting there as a fan and it felt like a lot. But 15 is not that much. This Denver Nuggets team has overcome way more. They've overcome a larger deficit with less time in the fourth quarter. And I felt like with 7 minutes left, down by 15, I watched the Nuggets give up. I did. I could feel it. I could feel the energy shift where I was like, they're done. They're done. They don't want to win this one. They don't. And this is just a regular season game, if you want to look at it that way, right? It's February 2nd, and we're in the regular season. I think the thing that Denver Nuggets should take not Denver Nuggets. The things that Nuggets fans should take away from this OKC game, which was arguably the most important game of the season thus far, is that the version that OKC will see in the postseason when it really matters the most is not the version they just saw. But on the flip side, it's not going to be the same version that the Denver Nuggets see from OKC either. Can't tell you how happy I was to not be tormented by Alex Caruso all night, honestly. So you're going to get two very different versions of these teams if they're healthy come the postseason. That being said, you kind of have to be excited and proud of the fact that the Denver Nuggets lost by 10 to a really solid OKC team, and OKC was lighting it up from the three-point line. And the Denver Nuggets only lost by 10. I did not lose confidence in this Denver Nuggets team watching this game at all. Jokic is 2 games back. This is his second game back from injury, from a very long injury. You're still missing 3 of your starters, and you learn a lot about yourself when you lose. So we move on. We tidy some things up. And we also understand that in just 3 days, the trade deadline is here. And there is a chance that the Denver Nuggets make some movements. What those movements could be, I'm not sure. I've seen conversations about Hunter Tyson. I've seen conversations about Zeke Naji. I've seen conversations about Julian Strawther. Basically, if you want to know what is going on with the Denver Nuggets and why there's so much, what are they going to do ahead of February 5? What are they going to do ahead of the trade deadline? What is their plan? Here's what the Denver Nuggets are trying to avoid. It's very, very simple. The Denver Nuggets are the Denver Nuggets are around $400,000 above the tax line. So they're trying to go below the tax line. They're continuing to try to get creative and see if they can move some pieces to be basically to cancel out that $400,000 so that they can be below the tax line. Zeke Naji has been in conversations as it pertains to this trade deadline. Hunter Tyson's name has been coming up as we approach this trade deadline. Really, I think the Denver Nuggets know Peyton Watson got more expensive this season. Peyton Watson also is not the guy you want to watch walk. He's young. His ceiling is high. His stock is up. And he currently brings a lot of value to this Denver Nuggets team, and probably even more now that Aaron Gordon is out for another 4 to 6 weeks. I just don't think the Denver Nuggets can afford to lose Peyton Watson. And I know he's become more expensive. And I don't expect or want Peyton Watson to take less money just to stay in Denver. I don't. I want him to get what he deserves. I do. And I know that right now, it's not really a matter of whether or not Denver has the money. It's a matter of, can they pay Peyton what he deserves without going over that tax line anymore? They're trying to get under it. They're trying to eliminate having that going into that second apron. So Peyton Watson deserves to get paid. There are pieces on this Nuggets roster that I think you can move that still hold some value, and thankfully so. I'm never happy about guys getting injured, but in this case, the injuries have allowed for Zeke Naji to have some minutes, Julian Strawther to play a little bit, Hunter Tyson to have some moments. So there's still some value there that you might be able to get something for. But Peyton Watson needs to be paid. He does. And he can't be paid anywhere else. I'm telling you right now, I will not allow it. It will send me over the edge. Because when you've got an Aaron Gordon, who I do have some concerns about, and not because I don't trust his body or the way that he trains. I mean, if there's anybody on this team that's in peak shape and prioritizes their offseason the best, it's Aaron Gordon. It is. But hamstrings are nagging. Hamstrings linger. And Aaron Gordon plays such an explosive game that I just think this is arguably one of the most unfortunate injuries he could have. So I do worry about AG. And I do think that it would be in the Denver Nuggets' best interest to rest him as long as possible. Even when he seems ready, let's pretend he's not. Because there is nobody more valuable to have on your team in the postseason than an Aaron Gordon. So I'd rather him not play in the regular season, because we've seen that a guy like Peyton Watson is doing just fine in his place. Just fine in his place. So rest AG as long as you need to in order to keep him ready for the postseason when it matters the absolute most. That's my vote. So now more than ever, you need to pay Peyton Watson, because you've got an Aaron Gordon that's out an additional 4 to 6 weeks, and who knows after that. And you're going to want to keep a good standing in the Western Conference. And you don't do that without Peyton Watson. You just don't. So you move some pieces, right? You're $400,000 above the tax line. They're trying to move pieces. You move every piece you possibly can. You pinch as many pennies as you have to keep Peyton Watson, because I don't think it's an option without AG. You lose AG for 4 to 6 weeks and maybe more, and Peyton Watson, it's going to be a problem. So, it's February 2nd. No moves have been made by the Denver Nuggets. It's also February 2nd, and no moves have been made for Mr. Giannis. Let's talk about that really quick, okay? As of January 29th, there was a 25% chance he was going to be with the New York Knicks, 15% with the Warriors, 12% with the Heat. Then by January 30th, we had a flip. Warriors, 35% chance, Heat 15, Knicks 12. As of February 1, the Bulls have now entered the chat, 30% chance. Warriors 11, Heat 6. And as of February 2nd, 55% chance that he is not traded at all. That's what people are saying. That's what the people believe. That now, as of February 2nd, there is a 55% chance that Giannis will not be traded at all. Giannis has expressed that he doesn't want to be there. I think when a guy has done so much for your franchise and he no longer wants to be there, why keep him? Why would you want a Giannis playing on your team that doesn't want to be there? You really think you're going to get the most out of him? I think Giannis has been patient with the Bucks. Following their reign with Giannis, in their prime with Giannis, he's been very patient as they've been trying to rebuild around him and get back to another finals. He's been patient, and I think when you're a player of his caliber, it just gets to a point where you've waited long enough and you're ready to win again. You're ready to be a force to be reckoned with again. Giannis has expressed he wants to go. So let him go. Let him go. Let's not do the whole Jimmy Butler 2.0 thing where you're basically holding this man against his will and he's just miserable. And he's unhappy and you're unhappy and now the entire roster is suffering because you didn't just let this guy go. Will Giannis be traded is the ultimate question. There's 3 days left. 3 days the Bucks have to make a move, and it just doesn't seem like it's a priority of theirs. Or there's just not, it's just not worth it to them. This is a business at the end of the day. If you're not getting what you believe you should get for Giannis in return, then it isn't worth it from a business standpoint. A lot of moving parts in this business, unfortunately. And just because you are a player of his caliber and you have a demand or a desire to get something doesn't always mean you get it, because there are a lot of moving parts. And unless those moving parts can work together, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Now, sometimes you do get a stubborn front office that's just intentionally being difficult. And sometimes you just get a front office that's like, what's in it for us? Like, we're not getting enough trading you to make it worth it for us. And this is a business at the end of the day. It would be so rude of me not to mention that this is the year that Jamal Murray was named an All-Star. Congratulations to Jamal Star Murray, who is finally named an All-Star in the NBA. And I had someone resurface a tweet where I said something, I was just being critical of Jamal Murray, and it was from last season. I celebrated him getting named an All-Star this year, and somebody brought up a tweet from last season and basically was like, "This you?" ? I'm like, yep, sure is. I'm not sure what your point is. Jamal did not play this way last season. Anyone that actually watches the Denver Nuggets knows Jamal Murray wasn't fit to be an All-Star last year. Are you joking me? Or the year before that. Now, there were plenty of years before that, though, that you could make a case that Jamal Murray deserved to be an All-Star. But there was quite a bit of inconsistency over the last couple of seasons that would warrant Jamal Murray not being named an All-Star. And that's common sense. That was not me being a hater. I wanted nothing more than for Jamal Murray to be an All-Star. My frustrations with Jamal last year were that he wasn't playing like an All-Star, and I knew he could be one. That was my frustration. So he's finally named an All-Star, and it's because of what you're getting from him when you're getting it from him. There were a lot of Nuggets fans that I felt like unfairly called for Jamal Murray to be an All-Star. Over the past couple of seasons, I would make the case that Jamal Murray wasn't fit to be an all-star, wasn't deserving of an all-star. Now, if the all-star game followed the playoffs, well, yeah. But playoff Jamal is a springtime wonder. We weren't always getting that. In the regular season, there were a lot of people that were like, this is why he's not an all-star. Because what was that? What you're getting from Jamal Murray this season is what we used to have to wait for the postseason for. And now you're getting it now. I've always known that Jamal Murray was capable of being an all-star. We just weren't always seeing it on a consistent enough basis to go, yep, he's an all-star. Now, let's talk about the all-star snubs, if you will. I've seen some discourse. I've seen some conversations about the all-star snubs this year. And let me just give you my stance on it. To me, the snub conversation is hard, right? But the snub conversation is only hard for me now because I have trained myself into understanding what the all-star is really about. It's not about season stats, guys. It's not. The all-star voters care more about reputation than they do about season stats. Because if it was about season stats, then where's MPJ? And before you say, well, the Brooklyn Nets are bad, this is not a most valuable player award. This is an all-star award. This is a star-driven league, and we are looking specifically at individual players and their level of performance. If you look individually, Michael Porter Jr. could have and probably should have been named an all-star this year. But that's not what it's about. It's about reputation. There are certain players that have a certain reputation that no matter what they do from a stat perspective, they will always be included in the all-star conversation. Always. So there were some snubs, you know? You look at individual performance, where's Kawhi Leonard then? There's a lot of players you can make a case for, but I have trained myself into understanding what this is really about and the popularity contest that it is. And I really think the only solution to this problem to avoid the snubs altogether is to do away with East and West. It's just your best players in the league, because here's the reality. And no offense, but the Western Conference, from a talent perspective, in my humble opinion, is far more superior than the Eastern Conference most of the time. So if you're being forced to pick out of the Eastern Conference, you're going to get guys that you're like, what? Him over him? That guy over Kawhi Leonard? What? But you have to pick from the East and you have to pick from the West. So now, unfortunately, because the West is so stacked, you've got guys that are being kind of caught in the crossfire, collateral damage a little bit, because they're forced to pick from East and West, and there's more talent in the West than there is in the East. So unfortunately, some of these Western guys get snubbed. It happens every year. I think the only way you solve this problem is doing away with East and West and just picking the best stars in the league. That's it. Just the best guys in the league. Because as trades keep happening, as superstars start demanding, I want to get out of here, you start losing a Giannis from the East to the West. Now who's getting snubbed because Giannis is in the West? Do away with East and West in all-star voting. Just do away with it. Just take your best guys. And this is not most valuable player, so their team record shouldn't matter. We have enough technology to be able to very clearly see the most impactful individual players in this league and the all-star season that they are having, regardless of the team record. To me, team record is kind of the lazy way to do it. Oh, let's just look at the best teams and pick the best player on each team. That's so lame. That's so lame. So, don't punish these guys that are having these standout seasons because they're on a crappy team. That doesn't take away from their all-star performances day in and day out. So do away with East and West, because I think you force yourself to start picking out of the East because you have to. You got to find the guys that are best out there. And now some of the West guys are getting snubbed, and vice versa. Pick your best guys. It's very simple. Pick your all-stars. regardless of where they play. Pick your all-stars. So there's some snubs, yes. But nothing we haven't seen before, unfortunately. So I think unless they create a new system around this all-star voting, you're going to continue to have snubs. You will. Every single time. But who cares? Jamal Murray's an all-star. Now, unfortunately, Nuggets fans, hate to say it, but we can no longer say that Nikola Jokic doesn't have an all-star. He does now. And we always knew he had one that was sitting there like waiting for his moment, but now he has one. It's officially official. He has an all-star. So no more complaining from us, I'm afraid. Whatever we get is what we get, and he has an all-star, so he has help. I guarantee you the haters are waiting for the moment that they can tell us, you don't get to say that anymore. Yeah. So anyway, the NBA is in full swing. And the Denver Nuggets are still riddled with injuries, but hopefully coming back. I saw that CB, thankfully, has been upgraded from doubtful to probable in the last game. Or maybe it was questionable to doubtful. I don't know. He's being moved up the ladder a little bit. So fingers and toes are crossed. The Denver Nuggets will be just fine. They will. I'm not worried about it at all. And more coverage on this team and the NBA as a whole on Friday for another episode of MoodSwings. And before I forget, Landmark Lincoln is doing a pretty cool sales event. The Lincoln Certified Sales Event is happening now at Landmark Lincoln. Discover the confidence of Lincoln Certified pre-owned vehicles, meticulously inspected, thoughtfully refined, and ready for the road ahead. For a limited time, enjoy special APR rates starting at 2.49% for up to 48 months or 4.49% for up to 72 months. Luxury, performance, and peace of mind. Discover your sanctuary only at Landmark Lincoln. That does it for another episode of Mood Swings with Liv Moods. I'm Liv Moods signing off for now until Friday. We'll see you Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Much love and go Nuggets.